Hey everyone, it's Chelsea just jumping in before we start the episode to let you guys know that this is an episode of our podcast, $40,000 on Shoes, which is a podcast series we did deep diving into the financial, professional, and personal lives of all four of the Sex and the City women. We will link you to every episode on each of the women as they are published so that you can watch the whole collection. But it's important to note that although we are making these episodes free as a very special summer treat brought to you by one of our partners, which we'll speak about in a second, $40,000 on Shoes was originally a podcast for our members-only program, the Society at TFD, which is a paid membership that is probably the most important way that we support ourselves as a business. And one of the many, many things that we offer exclusively for our members is podcasts on all of the different topics that you guys request. Obviously, we have Sex and the City, but just a few of the other pop culture podcasts we've done recently for our members include Gilmore Girls, Love is Blind, The Real Housewives, and we have plenty more movie and TV deep dives coming your way in 2025 and beyond on plenty of other topics as you request them. So please do consider joining our membership if you want to get access to these podcasts and tons of other really cool things. There's plenty of info in the description to learn more or just to check out the other episodes. But as I mentioned, we are able to bring you these free episodes of our members only podcast as a little summer treat thanks to our partners at Monarch. So for those who don't know, I was a longtime Mint user for my sort of budgeting app / general money management tool. And when it went away, I was very much like, what am I going to use now? I'm so used to it, blah, blah, blah. I ended up using Monarch, which is a really, really great budgeting / financial management app that was actually started by people who formerly worked at Mint. So for me, the user experience and just kind of the interface of Monarch felt very easy to understand and very familiar. And I can wholeheartedly say that if, unlike Carrie Bradshaw, you want to get a very proactive handle on your finances, one of the best things you can do is just start with a really, really good money management tool. And to me, Monarch is definitely that tool. You can use it to budget, to set goals, and to actually understand where your money's going. And you don't even have to take my word for it because the Wall Street Journal named Monarch the best budgeting app, and it was also named the best Mint replacement by Forbes, something that really speaks to me personally because, as I said, I was a longtime Mint user. Fun fact, it was actually in the first TFD book. And with Monarch, there's no ads or selling your financial data to third parties. It is just a clean, secure app that makes managing money feel way less overwhelming. And you can even create monthly summaries and interactive reports to make your money check-ins stress-free. So join me and over 1 million other Monarch users by clicking the link in our description box and getting 50% off your annual plan with code TFD. Welcome to $40,000 on Shoes, a Sex and the City podcast where we break down the financial stories, horror shows, and victories of our four favorite New York City ladies. I'm Chelsea Fagan, founder and CEO of The Financial Diet, and woman who has seen Sex and the City approximately 100 times.
I'm Holly Trantham, creative director of The Financial Diet, and also a woman who has seen Sex and the City a lot, but I'm not going to commit to 100 times.
And you're rewatching it right now.
I'm rewatching it right now. I think this is probably my 7th rewatch.
Listen, lucky number 7.
I didn't see it for the first time until I lived here.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't ever watch it growing up. My mom hated Sarah Jessica Parker, although she now claims that she doesn't anymore. So I think she got over that like internalized sexism.
Okay, but that's crazy because now is the time to hate Sarah Jessica Parker because of what she did to our girl Kim Cattrall. We'll get into it.
To be fair, I don't think my mom knows anything about that because she does not watch Sex and the City. She never has, and she always refused to.
So today we are here to talk about my personal favorite Sex and the City character of the main four girlies, Miss Samantha Jones. Historians of TFD will know that in our first book, which was released in 2017, I believe.
2018.
Okay, well, technically our first book party was December 17th, but December 2017.
I think it was released January 2nd.
January 2nd, 2018. There is a whole chapter about how you should be a Miranda, not a Carrie. And I would like to, come to the defense of my former self in saying that I definitely think it's preferable to be a Miranda to a Carrie. But now, in my wisdom, I think it's actually preferable to be a Samantha to a Miranda.
Because I don't know if I agree with that.
Okay, starting off strong with a dispute. So you actually think it's better to be a Miranda than a Samantha. Why the hatred for Samantha?
I don't think it's better to be one or the other. I think that they have both made different decisions and they're both a lot more aspirational than Carrie or Charlotte, which is I think is debatable. But we'll get into that in her episode. But I do think from the perspective that you were writing the first TFD book from, and just speaking financially and from I think just speaking financially, it's Miranda's choices are a lot clearer. But I do agree with you. I think Samantha has more fun in her life. And I do think that Miranda falls into more of the like girl boss trap of, you know, just going after her career goals and working way too hard and working way too much. And Samantha is like definitely here for more of a good time. And still smart with money, I think.
Well, okay, so on that note, each of these episodes, we're going to kind of kick off our conversation with the worst money moment of each of these women. For some characters, like Carrie Bradshaw, I mean, we're like, what is it? Scrooge McDuck just diving into the gold? Like, there are so many terrible moments to choose from, an embarrassment of riches. Samantha, it's actually kind of hard because even when you look at a lot of her worst moments from the show, like a lot of, you know, what happened with like Richard and, you know, some of her bad relationship stuff, she always secures the bag. She's always very financially savvy. She's never dependent on anyone. She always kind of shores herself up. I think we came to the conclusion that her worst moment was probably the Birkin incident.
I think that was just from a PR perspective. She's a PR professional, and that was really bad.
That was really bad. And also, like, it was one of the rare moments where, because I think Samantha's, like, her primary quality in so many ways is a total self-possession.
Yeah.
And she was so unself-possessed. And it's sort of entirely in the name of consumerism and outward appearance, which is, I think, you know, it brings us to sort of, I think, the first point about Samantha, which is that before it was even a term, sort of the ultimate girl boss.
Yeah, I think so. Thinking of Samantha's worst moments on the show, like the cringiest ones, I even put a list in that doc. They don't really have anything to do with money. She just said the most, you know, insensitive kinds of things on the show more than any other character, I think, or had the most, you know, problematic takes.
Correct.
And some slurs were dropped in different episodes.
Sure.
So those are definitely the worst moments I think of her, but I don't think she ever made any bad financial decisions. In fact, you remember that episode when she was sleeping with the stockbroker who got arrested for insider trading?
Correct.
Honestly, he got arrested and she just like kept the information.
She also, there was
don't do that, but you know, it was really funny.
don't do that. That's how Martha Stewart went to jail. She also went to prison, actually. She also famously, I think, dated a doctor and abused a prescription for like Viagra.
Yeah,
and like got like lightly addicted to it. One of her like sort of recurring themes was just like dating professional men or sleeping with them and using them to do illegal things.
Yeah. Is that true that would happen to a woman taking Viagra?
Okay, I have no idea. So I actually did read an article about this once, not about Viagra, but women taking like testosterone and things like that can have an effect on you. But it's not, I mean, the way it was represented in the show was insane.
It was. He broke up with her because of it. Because she was so addicted. She needed her pills.
Yeah,
it was
she needed
really
her pills.
Which was also really not great. Like a pretty insensitive portrayal of quote unquote addiction. But, you know, it was funny.
Yeah, I mean, listen, she also, I mean, had the most casual relationship with drugs generally throughout the show.
She did.
Which, you know, I think in one thing that it will sort of touch on in all of these is just like, when you watch it now through a 2024 lens, the alcohol consumption on this show is so wild. So wild. They're just all out there, you know, 30 to 40 somethings on a weeknight, having 3 martinis and then dancing till 3 a.m, and then going to work.
I guess they burned off all the calories from their drinks because they're all so thin too, which I know is still a thing in television, was very much a thing, especially in the 90s. But like the way that they're consuming alcohol, especially on that show, just does not line up with the lifestyle you'd have to be keeping up in order to have an appearance like that. I mean, I guess they're all genetically blessed, but you know.
Digression, but I completely agree. So with regards to Samantha's sort of cringiest moment, her girl bossitude, I think, was what ultimately kind of landed her in her worst moment, the Birkin moment. And just to refresh anyone's memory, if you don't remember the Birkin bag moment, so essentially Samantha wants to acquire a Birkin bag, which then and now is an extremely expensive designer purse that usually you can't just walk into a store and buy. There's a wait list and you have to sort of qualify for it. And there's been all kinds of controversy about like picking and choosing who gets one and discrimination and all that. But basically you have to sort of like, you have to work your way into getting one. And one way to kind of cut the line often is to be a celebrity or a really notable figure. And Samantha has finally landed representing the actress Lucy Liu, who plays herself in the movie. This was, by the way, we should, remind everyone, her peak Charlie Angels era kind of fame. So Charlie's Angels. So this was, it was a big celebrity cameo, and in the story, a very big client for her. And she's waitlisted for the Birkin. Samantha is. So she uses Lucy Liu's name, and sort of insinuates that, or says that the bag is for her, skips the line, has some really, really zesty phone conversations with the people at Hermes, curses them out, insists that, quote, fucking nobodies are walking around the streets of New York, and Lucy Liu can't get her Birkin. They send the Birkin. She pays for it. Samantha pays a whole lot of money out of her pocket. They send the Birkin directly to Lucy Liu, thinking it's for her. And Samantha tries to take it from Lucy Liu, saying, oh, I just dropped your name. I actually paid for this. This is for me. Lucy Liu is like, not only am I keeping this bag, I'm firing you, and you cussed out the Hermes employee in my name. So overall, a terrible look for Samantha and a big, big hit to her pockets.
Do you think a celebrity like Lucy Liu, if Samantha had been upfront with her, like, hey, I want to use your name to get a Birkin bag, do you think she'd be okay with it?
I mean, listen, I think, as I've said many times publicly, one thing that we don't understand enough about celebrities is that most of them are functionally very stupid. And when you meet a lot of them in real life, you're like I'm talking like, we're having issues with like basic reading comprehension, that kind of stuff. So I think celebrities are either like surprisingly chill probably, or would get upset at things you would never expect. Unpredictable. Not saying this is the case of Lucy Liu. I'm sure she's brilliant, but a lot of them. But I think that moment was just sort of a greater reflection of, I think the least aspirational aspect of her character to me as compared to a Miranda who, and I still generally think that she's much more aspirational for reasons we can get into, but her obsession with appearance, with, outward perfection, with all of that kind of stuff, that to me is sort of the aspect of her character that sort of aged the worst.
Yeah, I would agree. I do think, I was actually talking with Rachel about this, and
our coworker
about this. And one thing that's really great and kind of honestly forward thinking about the way they wrote Samantha was how open she was about the work she'd had done and the effort that went into her appearance. I think in a way that with Carrie, it's just like baffling. Like, how is she supposed to have 6-pack abs and like hate working out and never go to
just blasting cigs, eating French fries at a diner, and drinking booze.
Exactly. So I think with Samantha, she was really open about, the kind of work she had done, that the fact that she would get plastic surgery in the future, even though I think on the show she ended up not getting anything done when she went to see that.
She does cop on the show to, all kinds of superficial treatments, but she ends up, she was going to go get a boob job notably, and then they discovered cancer.
That's right. That's when they discovered that. I just saw the other episode when she ended up she was going to get some procedure done, and the plastic surgeon drew all over her with red marker, and then she looked in the mirror and she was just like freaked out about it, so she didn't get anything. But that was several seasons before.
But she did things like, for example, get the chemical peel dangerously close to Carrie's book party. No, but I think you're right that the honesty about her sort of ruthless management of the self did age well, and is, I think, something that people would respect today.
But I agree with you when you're talking about her obsession with consumption, and the Birkin bag, getting it by any means necessary, even sneaking it away from its rightful owner, Lucy Liu. And she casually dropped once that she spent $2,000 on an outfit for that designer's funeral. She definitely, just like Carrie, is always in different clothing, always in different outfits for every occasion. I think she's very materialistic.
But what's interesting about Samantha is, she very much leans into one kind of version of what the girl boss life looks like. And I think an interesting contrast to her and Miranda, that we'll explore more in Miranda's episode, but I do think is the key reason that Samantha is more aspirational to me. I think Samantha does have a higher level of ownership and comfort with who she is and what she wants. But I think Miranda, throughout the show, you mentioned in your notes here that she sort of more embodies the having it all archetype. She's, this high-powered attorney, and she then also has a family and a husband and all of this kind of stuff, moves to Brooklyn notably. And I think that it's clear in the show and the way Miranda's character developed that she was kind of pulled kicking and screaming into the having it all archetype. And I don't even necessarily know that that's something that she ever really wanted. I think she settled hard for Steve and let that man sort of nice guy bully her into having a whole different life. I kind of think he baby trapped her, but we'll get into that with Miranda. But I think Samantha is an interesting example of sort of what the girl boss maybe could have been, which is like, you are very clearly making a lifestyle choice that precludes other lifestyle choices. And it was very interesting that, especially for her time, Samantha was represented as being totally okay with that. I know I'm giving up all of these things, and that's okay.
Yeah, well, didn't Kim Cattrall say specifically when she joined the show that she wanted to make sure Samantha never had a kid?
That was one of the ground rules that she set, was that Samantha would not have a child because she didn't think it was true to the character, and she thought it was really important for that to be represented on TV. One of the reasons that I will literally lay my life down for Kim Cattrall.
Yeah, I think that it would have been so crazy for that character to have a child. It would make absolutely no sense for who she was and what she wanted and how she lived her life, to decide, oh, just kidding, I want to not live for myself, and I want to not that mothers only have to live for their kid. I know that's like a tricky territory to wade into, but I do think that with Samantha, I don't think she ever showed any inkling of wanting it. She was very forthright about the abortion she had.
She had two.
She said she had two, and she was very, like, I wouldn't say necessarily proud, but she was, like, not ashamed that she had them. And she shared it very openly. And she shared it without asking. And I think that's, even at the time, I think that's probably a pretty big deal.
Well, I mean, I think if you look at the girl boss as a phenomenon, I think its biggest kind of, one of the biggest criticisms that you could sort of levy at it is that it was sort of encouraging women to imitate men in a lot of really toxic ways. And I actually think Samantha is a good example of, quote unquote, imitating men, or at least giving oneself permission to live the way men live in a very unapologetic way, and in a non-toxic way, and a non sort of like abusive, demeaning, hostile way. Like, she was very much like, I give myself permission to enjoy my life, enjoy my sexuality, enjoy my work, enjoy my, my money, in exactly the way a man would.
So do you think she was a good boss?
Listen, we basically never see her with an employee except for, we did see her with the one that she slept with famously. She fired him and then slept with him immediately. We see her at work here and there. I think she was probably a nightmare, but I'm going to go ahead and give her the benefit of the doubt and say maybe she was good.
We did see that other younger woman who
stole her clients,
and then threw that hoedown party where Carrie saw Big and Natasha for the first time. The Hamptons hoedown. There we go. And which lol, that was like a big yearly party supposedly, but that was mostly portrayed as like this was an entitled brat and Samantha put her in her place. Which I believe is definitely possible. I also probably think Samantha worked alone a lot because she seemed to be obviously contracted for events and stuff like that. But I don't know if I believe she was like the kindest to catering staff and stuff like that.
No, she clearly wasn't. But I also think it's at the end of the day, you got a boomer woman who's who owns her own PR firm and wears head to toe designer every day. How nice is she ever going to be?
Yeah, totally.
And it's also interesting to note that so many of her sort of consumer decisions very much mirrored Carrie's, but you really did always get the impression that they were totally within her budget. They were something that she very much sort of planned for ahead of time and worked enough to be able to afford. And there are several times throughout the show where, especially when Carrie's in financial distress, where Samantha's like, I'll cut you the check. She's like, I got the money. Yeah. And also, one thing that we cannot underestimate is how much of a real estate maven she was portrayed as throughout the show. Notably, got in early in the meatpacking district, bailed on the Upper East Side at the right time.
Yeah.
Probably bailed at its peak. We discussed in the Real Housewives podcast how Real Housewives of New York, Sonia Morgan, the townhouse she bought on the Upper East Side in 1998 for over $10 million is now being put up to auction. Will probably only clear 5.
Wow.
30 years later. So
it's not a happening neighborhood.
No, it's not. And also, I mean, there's just a lot of ways in which Samantha is shown as being very savvy, very avant-garde in a lot of her financial and professional decisions. Again, that like is sort of the anti-Carrie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I know we'll get into this, but I do think ultimately she was so independent, and so as much as she did spend a lot of different moments dating really rich men like Richard, she definitely never needed them in a way that is very different from Carrie and Charlotte.
Well, let's get into Richard, because I do think he was probably one of the story arcs that made her character most interesting, because you really got to see such a different side of her.
He brought out the most insecure parts of her.
You also saw his penis on the show.
Wait, really? I don't remember that.
Oh, you see his penis in the show, famously in the scene where they are falling in love, swimming in his rooftop pool on one of his hotels to the sounds of Sade. He dives into the pool and you see his thing just flopping around.
Yes, that's right. You do. I mean, I guess Samantha is such a powerful woman. Like, she was never attracted to weak men. She really was always attracted to men who had, like, she dated that guy she called Mr. Cocky, and like she was like literally sorry, but
no.
She literally
I just talked about Richard's penis on the show.
She literally loved that he was, cocky and was so confident and powerful, and that's, I guess, what she really liked about Richard. I think, when I was thinking about what we were going to say for this, I was really struggling with why she was attracted to Richard in the first place. Because he always seemed smarmy to me off the bat, but I guess she kind of liked that.
I think they were definitely trying to represent him as, awkwardly, I think he was supposed to be a stand-in for Donald Trump. Just like a younger, more attractive version.
I thought Big was.
I think Big was initially based. Trump was one of the inspirations, but when you look at like Richard's credentials, like he's like a sort of eponymous hotelier with like properties all over the world. He's got like a huge New York City representation. He's always dating younger models. Like, I think there were a lot of it that was like very Trump coded. Also, Trump famously does have a cameo in one of Samantha's storylines when she's dating that much older man, and he's having lunch with Donald Trump. But, I think Richard was kind of meant to be her Mr. Big. He was, meant to be sort of this elusive figure that mirrored her in a lot of ways, and that she sort of liked the reflection of herself in. But I think, again, what's so interesting about her story, and it's one of the few times we see her slip up and, really, because she's, I think, a very clearly avoidant attachment queen, which we love. Yeah. I love. But it's very interesting that she always maintained total sort of financial, professional, or not professional, I guess, because they work together. But she always kept her money first and foremost protected.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think ethically they should have dated in the first place.
Well, of course not. Of course not.
I think her money was never. Were they engaged?
No.
Yeah. Okay. So when she did give a ring back to him at one point, but it was just a cocktail ring, I guess.
It was a cocktail ring.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's good. She didn't need to be engaged to that man. But I think the interesting thing with her, though, that was much different than Carrie, was she was able to say no at some point. And Carrie obviously broke it off with Mr. Big, I guess, technically a couple of times. But Samantha was able to finally definitively say, I think she literally said, I love you, Richard, but I love me more.
Which is almost identical to what she says to Smith in the movie, which we do not acknowledge, just so everyone's clear.
I was going to say, I've never even watched the movies.
The first one's okay. The second one is abysmal and deeply offensive. And again, I mean, the stuff that Michael Patrick King and Darren Star were making Kim Cattrall say on these shows. Yeah. Unbelievable, because in real life Samantha's actually like Kim Cattrall is actually like incredibly like progressive and thoughtful and insightful and has so much to say, and like some of the shit that they made that character do was, I mean, humiliating. Sometimes it felt like they were punishing the actress.
She was naked so much more than any of the other ones. She had to like do the craziest storylines about sex toys and pearl thongs and like and the Viagra thing. Like it just, yeah, she definitely had to do the most embarrassing things.
And I must say, we're breaking the fourth wall here a bit, but it is worth noting that Kim Cattrall and Sarah Jessica Parker had a truly earthquake level feud.
Yeah.
Apparently, SJP was very not kind to her on the set. When Kim Cattrall's brother passed away, I think very tragically in 2018, SJP had like publicly posted some sort of well wish, and then Kim Cattrall posted on Instagram and brought, I think her mother even was like, my mother was like, when will that, horrendous whatever Sarah Jessica Parker leave you alone and let this family be in peace, like to stop trying to restore her, her nice girl image. But I think a lot of the rumors at the time were that a lot of the other women were kind of icing her out, in part because her character was kind of becoming the runaway star of the show and was getting a lot of screen time, and was a fan favorite. And looking back, it's totally understandable why she was. I think she was the heart and soul of that show.
I don't remember there being such a significant character. Obviously, I'm not that old, but I don't remember there being such a significant, headstrong, independent woman who like has casual sex and isn't ashamed about it on TV before Samantha. Obviously, they all do. All four of them.
I'm kidding.
My God.
Stop. I mean, kind of, but she's married. Whatever.
Obviously all four of them do, but Samantha was definitely the one who, I don't know, she was definitely, I do think part of her character was that she had more sex casually than the other ones. Like even for Carrie, who goes on quite a bit of dates and ends up sleeping with a lot of men, like she definitely went on more dates with them before that happened generally. Whereas Samantha would just be like, hey, you want to go? And that was part of who she is. I agree, like, obviously, I think she had to do way more humiliating things, but I do think, she was having more sex because she was.
Here's the thing that so I've always been a Carrie hater, dyed in the wool, hate that character, whatever, SJP gives me off vibes IRL, but, I have to protect my girl Kim at all costs. But what is so galling to me about that show and the way that they portrayed the women's respective relationships to their own sexuality is like how much Carrie like low-key shamed and kind of degraded her. When Carrie's behavior was like, Carrie was making her way around town too.
Oh yeah.
And I would say Carrie's relationship to men, especially financially, and we'll get into it in her episode, was way more transactional than Samantha's was.
Oh, way more.
Way more. And the way that Carrie would like low-key undercut and judge Samantha all the time, like it's one thing from Charlotte, who that woman wakes up and eats internalized misogyny for breakfast, basically, and has like a very, interesting relationship to her own dating life. But like Carrie's shaming, like I feel like Carrie's character more than anything like really undercut Samantha.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. I like going back to when Samantha talked about her abortions, like she asked Carrie how many she'd had, and Carrie said, one, as if it would be so, baffling to believe she'd had a different one. And she also came back immediately with an excuse of, the server from the saloon.
Yeah, why hers was okay.
Hers was okay.
It's so galling too, because it's like literally Samantha was saying that to make you feel better.
Yeah, she was saying it to make Miranda feel better.
Yeah. Or Miranda feel better. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just, I mean, Samantha, and I want to say, not only was her character not really punished for it in that sense, she was rewarded with my favorite relationship in the whole series, Samantha and Smith Jerrod. I recently had a TikTok that did some light numbers about how I think he is by far the best guy ever on the show, better than Harry Goldenblatt for reasons we'll get into in Charlotte's episode. But the way that they represented, first of all, the age gap, but more importantly, their complete financial and professional power differential was honestly revolutionary for TV.
It really was. And he was so different from Richard, who she'd just come off of a relationship with, I think. Yes. I don't think there was very much time.
She famously kind of briefly cheats on Smith with Richard.
That's right. And then he's just like
sitting on that bench.
He just knows her so well, though. He just knows.
I hate myself for doing this to you.
Yeah. Oh my God. I mean, listen, that was a crappy thing for her to do, but
it was.
I don't know. I loved the way he responded to that because he knew it wasn't about him. It was about herself.
Yep.
But I understand why. I would have understood if he was like more upset than he was with that moment. But he just, he was just he was so chill. He was so confident in himself. And I think maybe part of that came from he was sober.
Yes. He'd already done, I mean, I think it's really interesting the way that they subtly portray the amount of self-work he had done prior to meeting her, and the way he sort of like, I always find that energy when you have someone who has a very sort of like skittish, avoidant energy, when you have someone who has like a very grounded, hey, I'm here, like work through all your stuff, I'll be here. And again, so much of it was financial. Like she met him when he was a server waiting on her.
Yeah.
He's substantially younger. He had no money. She helped him build his career. She changed his name. She gave him a total makeover. And then she brought him to a point of being more of a financial equal. And it was never represented as something that she had to sort of apologize for or make herself smaller for.
And he never resented her for it.
Never resented her for it. Whereas fucking Steve.
We have to save that for Miranda.
I know. I'm just saying, like, the contrast between the way Steve was like constantly undermining and punishing Miranda for being a successful woman and making more money than him, like truly he is like Smith's tether. Like Bizarro World Smith.
I don't think there's anything bad to say about Smith. I think he was so, oh my God, the hair moment when he shaved his head, when she had,
Can't even think about it without crying.
I don't have anything else to add there.
No, but I think it's also what I think the show did so well in its portrayal of this relationship was showing how you can have an equitable partnership that isn't always financially equitable.
Totally. And I think, that was another thought I was having about Smith. Samantha didn't need someone to take care of her financially, whereas like Carrie did and like Charlotte did. And, you know, he was there to take care of her in other ways that she never got from other men, because he was able to, you know, allow her to assert like her expertise over him and allow her to really be herself and really, I don't know, hold the reins in their relationship in a way he was like totally cool with. And
100%.
She got to be more in charge. And I think, you know, I think Steve is obviously a very confident, charismatic person, but he's not like out here trying to be a hotel mogul or, you know, some super powerful guy. Like he's like a model. Obviously he's wants to be an actor. He clearly wants to get some fame and some success, but he's not trying to like be in control of other people and assert power over other people. And I think that Samantha's such a powerful person, like she almost needed that to balance her out because she is so headstrong herself.
I totally agree. I also think it's really like, so people always say that like Big is a classic avoidant attachment, which I disagree with. I think he just doesn't like Carrie very much. Like he's perfectly attached to other people, and like
Smith is secure attachment.
Smith is secure attachment 100%. But I was going to say, I think conversely, I think Samantha is a perfect example of an avoidant attachment queen, because she very much did love Smith and she wanted all these things. And I always remember the scene where he's doing his big interview on TRL and she makes him say that he's not dating anyone. And then she regrets doing it as soon as he does it. And that to me is an example of like, and I think the way that they show her working through her avoidant attachment was also very true to life, you know, because I think that there's a really, that a lot of women, I think that's one of the reasons I also love her character so much, is you really just don't see that much representation of women who are themselves the avoidant partner, who are more uncomfortable with their emotions. Like I mean, listen, Jane Austen, no doubt you wrote some bangers, but the Mr. Darcy shit like poisoned the relationship representation for centuries to come. All we get is avoidant attachment men.
I mean, Lizzie Bennet is definitely arguably an avoidant attachment queen for sure.
Yeah, but there's just like the mysterious, brooding, hard to get man.
I do think,
and also, the chokehold he has had.
I think a really good example of her avoidant attachment tendencies is when they're first dating and she learns that Smith is sober, and she has to kind of accept the fact that like this isn't a party, you know, just for fun, casual relationship. Like a lot of her other flings are, because, you know, if you're sober the whole time you're dating and sleeping with someone, that makes it a lot more real.
You have to be a lot more present.
You have to be a lot more present for it. And I think that you definitely see that scaring her at first, and then she obviously accepts it. And I think like that's like a big moment of character growth to me.
For a show soaked in booze, very good to have positive sobriety representation on the show. And also in contrast with the other sobriety representation they had on that show, that absolute demon who like slept with Carrie and was like, God. Became an immediate sex addict and became obsessed with her and stripped naked in front of her house, swigging out of a bottle. I was like,
I thought that was actually a very irresponsible portrayal of some.
Of course it
like,
was.
I understand. Listen, we're not going to dive into AA right now, but like, I understand that, you know, the whole thing with him was he was not quite to his year sober. He was only a month behind it, and like, he probably shouldn't have gone on a date with her or shouldn't have started dating her because he was going to, you know, get too hooked too fast or whatever. But like, the portrayal of just alcoholics in general being like that close to ruining their lives, I guess. And listen, that's not me saying, you know, him having a slip up is him ruining his life. I think that there's a lot to be said about the, you know, AA model of perfect sobriety. And I don't really want to get into that here, but I do think that was a irresponsible portrayal for sure.
Well, I think when you have a show like Sex and the City that portrays a really loosey-goosey relationship with alcohol as being the norm.
Yeah.
You need to represent people who abstain as being, you know, inherently sort of broken. But sorry, go ahead.
No, it's like thinking about it more, thinking about Smith more, it's just like, it's actually crazy how we never saw, at least in the original run of the show, I've seen like a episode and a half of it just like that, so I don't know what all happens in that, but none of the women are ever portrayed as alcoholics or interrogate their relationship with alcohol, even though they are constantly drinking. And I just, in this universe, it's like, it's just totally accepted, and I think obviously culturally we're kind of interrogating that a lot more than we were in the 90s, but I just think like the fact that in this world, alcoholism is only that like very extreme, very, very toxic, can't function properly version
100%.
of it. There's no like functional alcoholism, which is, I think, probably what was being faced by a lot of characters, and maybe even Samantha.
I you know, ultimately it does show when you watch the show back, like how much we've evolved on this issue in a major way. One thing that we need to just say off the bat, I mean, as you mentioned in the intro, Samantha has been involved in some of the most cringy, tone deaf, insensitive, horrendous, occasionally slur-filled episodes that, like, at this point, it's like, obviously we would, you know, not make those again, and they're doing their damnedest to repair for that and just like that. I will never watch that show, so I simply don't know how that's playing out. But yeah, Samantha did often get, you know, some of the worst storylines in terms of how poorly they've aged. But I also think on the flip side, she did get to be a sort of beacon of sort of opting out from a lot of the more, because at the time, obviously it was a lot more socially acceptable to portray all these different, you know, for example, marginalized identities in an extremely comical and demeaning way. And, you know, that's awful to watch now and everyone cringes. But on the flip side, there were a lot of social mores about women and their role and what should be expected of them. And she was allowed on the show to be a sort of beacon of, I don't agree with that. And I think it's especially interesting the way it plays off of Charlotte and Charlotte's like linear obsession with like marrying a certain man, having, you know, 2.5 children, getting a big house. It's surprising that they never had her character want to move to Connecticut, because I feel like that
she's from Connecticut.
She is from Connecticut, but like it doesn't track to me that Charlotte's dream as Charlotte would be to live on the Upper East Side and not to move to Connecticut.
I don't want to actually get into this too much because we do have a Charlotte episode to record, but none of Charlotte's choices make sense for how traditional Charlotte is.
Well, I think the reason they don't is because if Charlotte were true to her character, she wouldn't live in New York City in her 30s.
Right. So it's just baffling. Like, why is she friends with these other women, which we see in that sorority episode? Why didn't she get married in her 20s? Why doesn't she live in Litchfield or wherever? Like,
yes,
it doesn't. None of it makes sense.
I think one thing that we want to highlight for her is the party that she threw, the I'm not having a baby shower.
Oh, I mentioned that in here somewhere.
Vibe. That's why I mentioned it.
Oh, yeah.
A total vibe.
It was a vibe. Wasn't that the episode where they go to Connecticut to Lane?
Her former rival, Lainey.
Yeah. Oh my God. And that bitch. I mean, like,
stole Charlotte's baby name.
Stole Charlotte's baby name.
I mean, that was Shayla.
Okay.
Please.
That was like Samantha's a girl's girl though, because she was getting drunk at that baby shower, having the worst time ever, wanted to leave, and then Charlotte is clearly upset at Lainey, and Samantha is like, "What's wrong?" And she says, "She stole my baby name." Samantha, there's no way Samantha knows what that means, but she just immediately is like, "You bitch."
You bitch. Now, one place where I do have to hold my Queen Samantha to account as a fellow child-free by choice queen is the way she treated Miranda after her baby. Now, she did quickly pivot, and she did help her out, and she did rock that baby to sleep on a vibrator, if we remember that episode.
I actually don't.
Okay, so basically there's a story arc where Miranda is essentially drowning in her effective single motherhood because she had a child with a man baby who is of absolutely no help to her. And we'll get into that in Miranda's episode. But she's drowning. She doesn't have time to do anything for herself. She's being kind of, iced out of the group, mostly by Samantha, because they just don't want to deal with the baby. She has no time to even get her hair done. And Samantha gives up her extremely expensive waitlisted appointment at the John Mandy salon that, she has to pretend to be Samantha. And she's like, go, you have 10 minutes, whatever, like go get your hair done, take my appointment. And she watches the baby. The famous rocking chair.
Yes.
That is the only thing that would get the baby to sleep breaks on like minute 2. So Samantha ends up using her Hitachi magic wand to get the baby to sleep.
I totally forgot about the magic wand moment. The salon moment was like so nice and like just such a like good portrayal of friendship. But yes, it was a bummer that she took a minute to come around to like the reality that her friend is going to be a mom now, and she's going to have to accept that she can't do everything that she was able to do before. She
definitely, Samantha, where she is a little version 1.0 of things, is where she's one of those women who is really sort of centered in her own choices, but has a difficult time accepting other ones from other people. But I do like that they brought her character around on that pretty quickly. And I do think that like they definitely sanded off some of the worst edges of that aspect of her character.
But don't you think that she had a harder time with that because it was Miranda, and because I don't think she would have had the same reaction to Charlotte?
Okay, this is meta commentary on the characters and script, because we can never forget that the show is primarily written by men.
It is.
And listen, there are some aspects of the psychology of these women that they got very well, and then there are some aspects of it that are not as good. And one of the things that I think was never really spoken, but I think could have made for a really juicy, interesting storyline between Samantha and Miranda, is that I think one of the reasons why Samantha took such issue with it is because she knew Miranda didn't want that kid.
Yeah.
And she was like, and I think she probably was like very disappointed in the whole arc with Steve. I mean, there were many times throughout the show where she like made reference to Steve's shortcomings as a partner and encouraged Miranda to make more sort of empowered choices and to live on her own terms. She was, I think, when Miranda was planning to terminate the pregnancy, she was on board with that, supportive of it.
Totally.
And I think that there was just like, I always got a sense there was an unspoken, and it should have been fleshed out in the writing vibe, because a real Samantha would have, I think, been very not cool with real Miranda having a kid with that loser.
Yeah, I mean, for what it's worth, I do think of all of them, Samantha stayed out of the other girls' relationships the most. Like, I think Miranda cared the most about what Carrie was doing. Everyone, Miranda and Carrie both were a little bit invested in what Charlotte was doing. Charlotte had opinions on everybody's choices, but I agree with you that I do think she would have had a problem with it, but I do think that Samantha didn't. She kind of like live and let live attitude towards everyone else's relationships to me. Like, she was the least like she was pointedly not judgmental of Carrie when she was sleeping with Big, even though the whole
not my style.
Not my style. And that's such a great moment, because it's not judgmental. It's like it's great. But is it what Carrie actually needed?
Well, that's what I was going to say. It is really interesting with that storyline how both she and Charlotte were totally dead on in the way that they responded, because Charlotte was like obviously very pissed at her for sleeping with.
He's married.
And she was like, you don't care about this woman. You just care about you.
Yeah.
Like, and that was dead on. And I think like, and little Charlotte, like they took vows. Like, but I think both Charlotte and Samantha's reaction to that situation were totally anchored in reality to their characters, and also were valid responses.
But that's another reason I think, because like we know Samantha sleeps with married men. Like that was several episodes, and you know, I don't think we're judging her for it because she is very much like, these men are going to sleep around wherever. Why not get what I want out of it? And like that's fine. But like to me, it still doesn't make sense that Charlotte would be friends with her, because Charlotte has such clear line in the sand ethics on that.
That's where I consider the show to be magical realism.
Yeah.
Because there's just no way. But I will say, to go back to the transactional nature of relationships, and where like I think Samantha just really shines as a character, is like both she and Miranda are the two that transcend the transactional nature of relationships that Carrie and Charlotte are very stuck in, and that really like limits their options throughout the show in a major way. And are just like, they're death gripping onto that really retrograde notion of a man and a woman in a relationship. But I think Miranda and Samantha both having that non-transactional relationship with men, and that like grounded independence financially, like I think Samantha is the only one who models it in a positive way, because I think for Miranda, you end up sort of paying the price on the other side, where men are basically not transactional with you, but like you get sort of all the downsides of being independent and none of the upsides.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get into it, but she needed a house husband, and Steve was just never going to give her that.
I mean, she had a house child. Anyway, whatever. But I think Samantha definitely demonstrated what a version of, because ultimately, yes, like her character often expressed it through having casual sex, which is definitely one way to go, but like the fundamental like sort of principle of her character was, this is what life looks like when you're not waiting for a man.
Totally. Just a quick aside about the casual sex thing. Do you think that the show finally had her do that episode where she got tested because it was like, oh, it's like not responsible for us to portray this much casual sex without talking about this?
I mean, I think maybe, they didn't have Twitter back then, but whatever way people were yelling at a show, I think maybe they were getting yelled at.
I mean, there were some decisions in the show that were definitely made because of pushback. Like they finally had Blair Underwood on because even the cast members were like, it's like totally ridiculous that we haven't had any non-white men.
Cannot wait to get into Miranda because I have a lot to say.
I know. Oh, that was yeah. Anyway, we're not going to get into that today.
We'll get into the doctor.
But I just mean,
imminently.
I think that there were some choices made because of, and maybe Smith too, maybe his sobriety. But that was also a really interesting place for growth for Samantha. So I guess that could have come from that too. But I just was thinking about that when I was watching that episode the other day, because it's actually, because to think about my friends now who do have, who are not in, monogamous marriages or anything, like who do have a lot more casual sex than I do. Like, just think about any of them not regularly going to get tested. It would be wild. Like, I don't think that, like, that's just completely an accepted part of their lives. And the fact that she wasn't doing that is crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where as soon as you make it a storyline, you have to address the fact that it's not been done. Whereas, like, if it hadn't been a storyline, you could just sort of assume that was always happening in the background. But that was a sort of atypical thing for her character, too. Because, again, like, if her whole defining quality is, like, total self-possession, like,
totally,
you would have had that lined up.
On that note, though, of total self-possession, do you think if this was being written today, she would be more honest about her age? Because she was, like, constantly, we kept celebrating her 35th birthday, and like she was like, guys, I'm a little bit older than you, and they're like, we know. And when she was breaking up with Richard, she was like, I'm too old for this, I'm only 37 after all. Or I'm 37 after all, and like lying about her age the whole show, and it's kind of a joke. I think now, I mean, maybe you disagree with me, but I think now she would be like, I'm this age and I still look this good, and that would be her whole vibe.
It's hard to say, because I think What seemed clear to me about Samantha's character is that every decision she was making was a sort of calculated decision based on the environment and the context that she was in, and was made to optimize her own success and her own options. And so I think that her lying about her age or being coy about it was because of how she felt men and society felt about it, not because she inherently had a problem with it. And in fact, I think there are a lot of ways in which she was sort of proud of, where and what she was at her age. And unfortunately, I don't think our society has moved all that far past ageism, so I think she might still strategically lie.
I get that I get that argument, but she did lie around just her girlfriends too.
That's true.
So I don't know. I think it's kind of a inconsistent insecurity with the rest of her to me.
I think ultimately there are a lot of things that would be different about her character now, but I also think that one of the things that just kind of, unfortunately, I think all of the societal stigmas that she faced on so many different aspects of her life, I just don't think we've made that much progress on.
Yeah. It is interesting to watch this show as, I know Kim Cattrall was, I think, 41 when she started it, but I'm finally the age that all of the other characters were when they started. They were either 32 or 33. And I'm just like, wow, they're drinking more than I did when I was 24.
The drinking's different. I mean, the amount of dating and sleeping around that they were doing, I don't know a single person in my life who's operating at that level. I don't know a single straight woman dating in New York City who's operating at that level. Although there have been a lot of studies that millennials and Gen Z are just generally having less sex. And they're going out less, and they're doing all kinds of things less. But I do think, and of course, obviously, it's it's a show, it's turned up for fun. But there is really what is interesting is that for as much as those things feel different and dated, Samantha's relationship to work and money feels even today cutting edge.
Yeah, I agree. Do we want to talk about Maria?
Okay, so Samantha is the only main character on the show to have a same-sex partnership throughout the run of the show. Now,
the original show.
Although
I guess that's also still true because, and just like that,
it's a different show.
It's a different show. Okay.
But it was played somewhat for laughs, and I think leaned into a lot of really offensive stereotypes. Yeah. And it's also, it should be noted on the money front, yet again, mixing business and pleasure. They met at work.
Oh yeah.
But
she's always at work though. Her job is parties. So I guess we have to kind of give her that. She's always working. So that's how she's going to meet anybody.
We do. But I think what's interesting about her having the same-sex relationship is it really, I think, underscored just how much of her partnerships were entirely about the moment and the connection and not at all about what you can do for me.
Yeah.
Which made it totally unique in the show.
Yeah, for sure. I think but the portrayal of the angry lesbian when Samantha decided she didn't want to be in that anymore was just
it was cringe beyond measure.
It was so cringe.
But yeah, I think Samantha ultimately as a character, and I think what's also interesting about Samantha as a character, when you look at the way her being totally financially independent freed her from a lot of the cycles that other women went through on the show, so many of her storylines were so much more about personal development and personal struggles outside of the context of relationships because they were not the defining feature of her life.
Can you give some examples?
So, obviously, a lot of her storyline centered around her work, for example. We never saw Miranda at the office. Charlotte quit her job the second a man put a ring on her finger, and Carrie had one column a week. So Samantha got a much more fleshed out career arc on the show. She had her entire cancer battle. Yeah. And, even when it comes to some of her major relationships on the show, a lot of that was primarily about either the work that they were doing together or in the case of Smith, totally making over his image. Just a lot of her stories, her real estate ventures, a lot of her stories were just very removed from the drama and tedium of relationship cycles. And I think what is so interesting about that from a financial perspective is it really just showed once you free yourself from depending on a relationship for personal and financial validation, we all have other shit going on.
She was often sleeping with her realtor or something like that.
Of course, but I think, but she didn't care. It wasn't it wasn't affecting her.
No, I agree. Yeah. I do think that, as much as she got like some of the cringiest lines and had some of the worst takes, like a lot of the moments that really didn't age well, she was definitely the most actually open about anyone, like of anyone on the show. She was, when Carrie was dating that man who was bisexual, she was the only one who was like, that's not weird. And
oh my God.
that obviously staged quite poorly, but
and she famously says, like, in the future it won't be about labels, it'll be about people.
Yeah, she does.
Dead on.
She does, and she was right about herself too. I just think that storyline could have been handled a little bit differently.
Of course.
But yeah, she definitely was the most open-minded of any of them, for sure.
Overall, I think Samantha, like I said, to me, she is the most aspirational character. She's the character who I think aged the best in a lot of ways, barring a few horrendous storylines they saddled her with.
I thought it was really interesting that we got to see her with the cancer storyline, and I think that was a really good choice, because as much as like it sucks to get cancer, it is like, she would have by then been the average age of a woman who gets breast cancer, so it made sense.
Yep.
And it's something a lot of people go through, so it's also like, it was a really good chance to, I don't know, like almost make her a little bit more relatable to other women, because she is so different, quote unquote, from a lot of the portrayals of women that you see on TV, and like what women want, quote unquote, like what women are supposed to want. And that was like a really good storyline to, like, I don't know, show that she was still a person, a human with feelings, and she was still going to go through shitty parts of life, even though she had a fabulous single independent existence. I guess she wasn't single at that point, but I don't know. Totally. I thought that was that, aside from like the Smith being able to cut his hair moment, him showing up for her friend showing up for her getting to like talk about something that wasn't just like fun and parties and fabulousness, when she got went up on stage for that breast cancer event. I think that, I don't know, I thought that was, I'm obviously not happy the character got cancer, but I think that it was of all of the shitty storylines that they've handed these people, I thought that was really handled really well.
And I love when she tells Carrie, like, I need you to let me talk about the things I'm scared about.
Oh yeah.
Like, stop trying to be like, it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
Also, I just want to shout out Kim Cattrall, by far the best comedic actress on that show. Like, her delivery, I mean, mwah. Like, there are so many lines of hers where it's like, that line in the hands of another actress wouldn't have been a fraction of how good it is.
Yes, I obviously agree. She also, like, as much as she did have to do so many humiliating things in this show and be naked so much, those aren't the things I think about first.
Not at all.
So,
she was the heart and soul. Okay, well, we will see you back here next week on an all-new episode of $40,000 on Shoes.
Bye.
Bye.